from the Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another spectacular episode of The Spread. This is your guest host, Big Easy, in the studio with senior baseball analysts J Dash and JK47. We're going to wrap up our breakdown of the NL East and talk about the New York Mets, a team that basically shined last year.
Yep, winning the division and going on to the World Series.
Won the division, went to the World Series, and how did that work out for them?
Not too well, Weezy.
Not too well. They didn't win, huh?
I mean, I'd take it, wouldn't you? A World Series appearance?
Oh, definitely. I'm not hating at all.
I'll take it. It still doesn't.
This is Kansas City's year last year.
Yeah, it was. I don't think it's their year this year.
No,
though.
definitely not.
It's not the Mets year either.
It's not the Mets year this year? Not feeling them?
No, I'm liking the Mets this year.
I mean, even if they don't win the division, they have a serious shot at the wild card. They have to with this pitching staff that they have. But they re-signed relief pitcher Jerry Blevins. They re-signed starting pitcher Bartolo Colon. And the big one, they re-signed Yoenis Cespedes. So a lot of people thought they weren't going to do that, and they went out and re-signed him. And that's probably their biggest move this offseason. Although they made a couple other moves as well. They signed relief pitcher Antonio Bastardo. They signed Asdrubal Cabrera to play shortstop. They signed him to a 2-year deal with an option for a 3rd year. And they traded for Neil Walker with the Pirates, gave up John Neese for him. Obviously, they don't need John Neese at this point because this rotation is beast right now. They lost Daniel Murphy. He went to the Washington Nationals, bringing in Neil Walker. I mean, Walker 2 years ago had the huge year, and really he looked like the best second baseman in baseball. Last year, somewhat of a down year for him. People were questioning whether or not he can hit lefties like he did 2 years ago. Last year, he did not hit lefties very well. Mostly throughout his career, he did not hit lefties very well, and he may end up being a platoon player by season's end. But who knows? He may step it back up to do what he did 2 years ago and become one of the top second basemen in baseball. Couple players they lost. Michael Kadire retired. Utility player Kelly Johnson, they lost to free agency. Daniel Murphy, I already mentioned. Juan Uribe, they lost to free agency. And relief pitchers Tyler Clippard, Eric O'Flaherty, and Bobby Parnell, along with a lifetime ban of Jenry Mejia. Did you see that, 47?
Yes, I did. Tough break, kid.
Yeah. Quit doing steroids, man. He's like 26 years old. Is it steroids? I think that's what it was. But I seen some kind of article where he said that there was like a conspiracy by the MLB. They were out to get him and didn't want him in this league. I have a hard time believing that, don't you?
Well,
Very
don't
hard
break
time.
the rules, man. I mean,
Yeah, don't break the... But I guess he's saying they fixed the drug test for him to fail because they wanted him out of the league. I don't know. Maybe he made some terrible enemies. Be a better person if that's what happened. That's pretty much all they did this offseason, but I mean, some big moves, obviously. And you take a look at this team, the outfield looks pretty good. I mean, their biggest weakness may be Curtis Granderson, but he still had a pretty good season last year. He's still able to take the walk. He's still a pretty solid player in his old age, although he's not going to be hitting for a high average.
he strikes out a ton.
Yeah, he strikes out a ton, but like I said, his on-base percentage isn't terrible because he's able to take the walk as well, has a little bit of pop. Yoenis Cespedes in center field, obviously, you got to be happy with that. And Michael...
Gun arm. Best arm in all of baseball.
And he's a beast at the plate as well. And you got Michael Conforto in left field, a guy that had his debut last season and put up some pretty decent numbers. And this was a top prospect. He came up and he produced immediately, really. I mean, he still has a lot more potential ahead of him, and he's going to be a better player, I believe. But last season, he already showed he's worth giving a starting spot to. And then you have Juan Lagares and Alejandro De Aza in the outfield as well as backups. And Juan Lagares is one of the best defensive players in baseball in center field there. He just hasn't been able to produce at the plate like they hoped so far, although he has some upside. He showed it in the minors. We'll have to see if he can take the next step or not. And he also needs to stay healthy. He's all out all the time on the field, and it really sets him back because of injuries as well. And they need his value comes when he's on the field, you know what I mean? Because he has just such great defense. I think he won a Gold Glove 2 years ago.
It kind of reminds me of that Japanese outfielder that played for the Indians on Major League.
Yeah, the guy that climbed the wall.
You got to play with reckless abandon.
You take a look at this infield. The infield looks good, too. You got the big power bat in Lucas Duda at first base. You have David Wright at third base, although they said he's going to play a maximum of 130 games this year. That's if he stays completely healthy because, you know, he has those back problems or whatever, and they just want to make sure this guy's healthy for the season. So you probably see Wilmer Flores a little bit there. Like I said, Neil Walker at second base. That's a great second baseman to have, but they don't know if they're going to play him against lefties, so you may see Wilmer Flores play some second base as well. They got a prospect, Dilson Herrera, in the minor leagues. He's a top second base prospect, and he looks like he's going to be a good player, although he has struggled a little bit in his time in the bigs, his limited at-bats. But this is a guy they actually got from the Pittsburgh Pirates as well, so two of their top second basemen came from the Pittsburgh Pirates system. They brought him over along with Vic Black in that Marlon Byrd deal a couple years ago.
Well, Dilson Herrera was a former top prospect, wasn't he?
I mean, he's still a top second base prospect. He was never really a top prospect. He might have cracked the top 100 once or something, but he was never really considered a high prospect, although he was the number two, as high as number 2 in terms of second baseman at one point. And this guy can hit, man. So there's still a chance that he becomes a starter at some point here as well. And it could be this season if they have some injuries. We know Neil Walker isn't always staying completely healthy. He played in 150-some games last season, but that was the first time in a long time that he's done that. So there's questions about him at second and David Wright at third base as well. But like I said, you brought in Asdrubal Cabrera to play shortstop, so this infield looks pretty good as well. And Travis d'Arnaud, one of the top young catchers in baseball, in my opinion. This dude has some serious power. I know here in Pittsburgh, we hear d'Arnaud, and we're thinking Chase d'Arnaud, so we think he sucks. But Travis d'Arnaud
is his brother, isn't it?
Yeah, it's his brother. But Travis d'Arnaud is way better than Chase d'Arnaud. And, I mean, d'Arnaud's the type of player where if you want to give him a break, you almost don't want to take him out of the lineup. You'd like to put him at first base or maybe play him in right field or something, you know what I mean? Because he has that type of bat. And they have another young guy, Kevin Plawecki. This guy is good defensively, and he showed it offensively in the minors, but people think maybe more 26, 27 years old when he starts to hit. So Plawecki, his bat hasn't come around to the major league level yet, but it's expected to, like most catchers, a little bit later in his career. But you look at this offense, man, it looks very good to me, just like the Washington Nationals. What do you think the weaknesses are offensively?
You know, I mean, I'm kind of like looking at them right now. I'm looking at Conforto. I'm looking at Cespedes. I'm looking at Granderson. I like the outfield. I'm not too crazy about Asdrubal Cabrera on shortstop. I mean, he's okay, mediocre at best.
You don't think he's above average?
Well, I mean, he at
least offensively.
He did have a couple big seasons in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's not that as Cabrera.
I mean, those days appear to be long behind him.
Definitely.
But, I mean, I do like the upgrades, though, that they've made. I mean...
You still got Ruben Tejada, too. That's a guy they like there in New York. He's just not starter material. But you could see him a little bit this season as well.
Well, I mean, no doubt. I mean, Wilmer Flores, he'll give you a nice addition off the bench, too. I mean, not only can he play shortstop, he filled in at third base a lot last year when David Wright was out.
Yeah, he's turning into a utility player. And this guy has a little bit of pop as well, and he can hit sometimes as well. I mean, he's not perfect or anything. He actually hit very, very well in the minors, but he hasn't really come through with like that in the big leagues yet. But he has some pop, so I mean that's a great utility player to have as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice looking offense. I don't think on paper though, I just don't see him quite being as good as what the Nationals can be though.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you got Bryce Harper. That's a leg up on everyone right there, obviously. And Rendon might be the second best hitter out of all these guys as well. You know what I mean?
The offensive battle, I have to give to the Nationals on this. But I do like what they've done, though. I like some of the pieces they've brought in. So, I mean, they'll be fun to watch this year.
I believe so, too. And then you move to the rotation, and this is where the New York Mets got the Washington Nationals at this point. You have Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, Matt Harvey. I think... If you ask me, that's 3 aces right there. And then Steven Matz is a number 2. This guy's actually still considered a prospect. He's a very good lefty. He showed that he can pitch like a number 1, really. And he's had a little bit of an injury history. And there is questions with this guy whether or not if he's going to be able to stay healthy or not. But those first 4 pitchers are ridiculous. Bartolo Colon at the back end of the rotation, that's not too terrible either. I know this guy's getting very old, but he still pitches all right, especially for a number 5. And then you got Zach Wheeler, who is supposed to return in July from Tommy John surgery. If they can get him back and he pitches like he has shown in the past as well, I mean, this 1 through 5 is ridiculous.
You can even argue 1 through 6 if they choose to go through a 6-man rotation.
Honestly, I wouldn't do that with Bartolo Colon. Just because, I mean, that's given less starts to guys like DeGrom and Harvey as well, you know what I mean? And that's not what I want to do. I mean, this team can win a ton of games this season if this pitching staff stays healthy and Wheeler comes back and is able to pitch like he showed before as well. So this rotation, is it the best in baseball?
From front to back, I would have to say yes.
Yeah, I'd have to agree as well. I don't think anybody else has 3 guys that you can consider an ace.
I don't know, I just really like DeGrom a lot. I like Syndergaard a lot. He's huge, he's big, he throws hard, strikes people out whenever he wants to.
And I'm hearing Matt Harvey looks better than ever as well. And if that's true, I mean, this team's going to dominate. So, yeah, I mean, in the American League, I was trying to think of who had the best pitching staff, and I almost want to say, well, there's Cleveland. Obviously, they got 3 good pitchers out there, but the Tampa Bay Rays have a pretty good pitching staff as well out there in Florida. But I don't think either one of those teams compare to this rotation right here they have in New York. It's all about staying healthy, though. We know Harvey's had Tommy John surgery. Matt's has had an injury history. Wheeler's injured right now. Noah Syndergaard's not a guy that they're going to want to pitch 220 innings this season if it comes down to it. He's still a very young guy, but he's a power pitcher. And DeGrom, I think he's the one guy that you can trust to stay healthy the most. But you look at the bullpen, they got Familia at the back end still. They have Addison Reed out there, Antonio Bastardo, Jerry Blevins, like I said, they re-signed as well. Rafael Montero's a young guy. He was expected to be a starting pitcher at one point. They moved him to the bullpen. Really, they have no room in their rotation right now. So, I mean, their bullpen isn't the best in the world. I really don't trust Addison Reed at this point, and I don't know if he's going to be able to stick at the back end of the bullpen. But they have some pieces out here that they can work with, and they could always add later. I think they definitely have enough in their starting rotation where a weaker bullpen isn't going to hurt them right now, and they can add pieces as the season goes along or at the deadline or whatever.
I'll tell you what, Yolis Familia was
yeah, he's a good closer.
He was a find last year.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with him. I'm just saying behind that, I mean, Antonio Bastardo, Addison Reed did not look good last season. I mean, he hasn't looked good in a while.
Yeah, I've never really been sold on him anyway.
And then Jerry Blevins, I mean, he's a solid reliever, nothing special there as well. I think actually Rafael Montero might step up and move to the back end of this bullpen if he can show what he showed in the minors and somewhat in the major leagues as well. He hasn't been terrible in the majors.
So, I mean, if there's like a little bit of an Achilles heel on this team, it's definitely the bullpen.
Yeah, I would think so, but I think, like I said,
they could always beef that up in the middle of the season.
It's a lot easier to beef that up. Yeah, you're correct on that. And really, if Curtis Granderson, he finally falls off a little bit. I mean, he has fallen off a little bit over the years, but like we said, he's still a good hitter. But they have Brandon Nimmo in the minor leagues as well. He's 22 years old, hit .269 with a .362 on base between Double-A and Triple-A last season. He really doesn't have the power that a lot of people thought he was going to have, but he's still a very good hitter. Strikes out a little bit too much, but he has an excellent walk rate. This guy could be a future starter for him. But I'm hearing a lot now that he's considered more of a fourth outfielder as well. I still want to believe this guy can be a starter, and he might be the guy that takes over Granderson's position pretty soon. Outside of that, they have that shortstop, Matt Reynolds. We did a prospect check on this guy last season. He's 24 years old. In 2014 in AAA, he hit .333 with a .385 on base, but last season in the same level, he hit .267, and it looks like he's more of a utility infielder at this point just because of all the additions they made. And really, Matt Reynolds, it's time to give this guy a chance at some point. So we should see him at some point this season, but in a utility role, shortstop, second base, third base, something like that. Who knows? They may even be able to put him at a corner outfield position. But that's it. What are you thinking about the New York Mets, Easy?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. They're beat.
They're beat, huh?
Yeah, they're beat. Just, we know when pitching matters when you make the playoffs. You got to get there, though.
They made the World Series last season. What do you want from them?
So what?
So what?
You can't make it every year.
No, you can't. Well, obviously you can't make it every year. It doesn't mean you can't make it in back-to-back years, though.
I don't see it happening. Like you said, the bullpen. Well, their pitchers better pitch 7, 8 innings, shut down ball and all year long.
Well, I mean, they can add some bullpen pieces, man. That's not that big of a deal. I mean, if your rotation's lacking a little bit, you need a beast bullpen. If your rotation is monstrous, I mean, you can have a little bit lacking of a bullpen. It goes both ways. I mean, to me, it's health. Obviously, we talked about the pitchers. They need to stay healthy. And we mentioned David Wright. Neil Walker hasn't been able to stay healthy throughout his career. So Travis d'Arnaud's another guy. We didn't even mention him. d'Arnaud's a guy that's been injured throughout his entire minor league career and his pro career. He's still a young guy, but he gets injured a lot as well. So I think the downfall with the Mets is just you need to stay healthy. The injuries may cut into their win total this season.
What do you see from Neil Walker this year? I don't know.
I see something like he gave the Pirates last season with a tiny bit more pop. Getting out of Pittsburgh helps a little bit in terms of the power, but nothing more than a 265, 270 hitter. He's not going to have a huge on-base percentage or anything, 330s maybe.
He don't have to do much, and they still got the best of that trade because Nice is garbage.
Well, he's a number 4. But I mean, that's the way it goes, though. I mean, pitchers cost more money, so if you're trying to trade someone in terms of like trying to keep the money close like Pittsburgh was, then you're going to lose that trade. And obviously, Neil Walker wasn't going to get big prospects either.
I see the Mets winning 85 games this year.
85?
That's it.
I could see both them and the Nationals in the 90s this season.
I could too, just as easily. I think the Mets are going to win this division. They're going to finish first place. I just think our pitching is going to carry them. The offense is beefed up. They're going to score enough runs. The only thing, like I said earlier, that concerns me a little bit is that lack of bullpen depth. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they can hold the leads that these young fireballers are actually giving them. But, I mean, I do love his team. I could see him winning about 94, 95 games possibly.
So, first place, Washington in second place, correct? Who'd you say in third place? Miami.
New York, Washington, Miami, Philadelphia, Atlanta.
So, just 2 teams in this division that have a chance at a wild card spot or winning the division, obviously? Or does Miami have a chance to go for a wild card as well?
Well, I mean, I guess they got a puncher's shot at it, but, I mean, in all reality, the way you're looking at things right now, absolutely not.
Yeah, I think there's just, I mean, you look at the AL, and there's a lot of evenness going on, in my opinion. There's a lot of teams that can win the division, win a wild card, whatever. In the National League, I think there's some teams rebuilding. We talked about the Phillies and the Braves. You know, the Reds are rebuilding. Milwaukee's rebuilding. So there's rebuilding teams going on. But there's a lot of top-end talent here, beast teams in the NL. So, yeah, there's still going to be some races at the end of the season. But there's a selection of fewer teams in the NL that have a chance at the playoffs, although I think they have the better teams.
Yeah, but yet they somehow manage to lose the All-Star game every year.
In the World Series last year. Although San Francisco, like you were mentioning before, even number year. So is it their year?
Well, we'll get to that when we do the San Francisco segment.
All right, so I'm saying, I actually said Washington Nationals are going to take the next step and win the division this season. I'm going to say the New York Mets, they take it right down to the end, but I'm going to say they miss out. And I don't know if they're going to make a wild card or not. Like I said, there's some very good teams, including, you look at the West, there's the Dodgers and the Giants. You look at this division, the Nationals and the Mets here. And then you look at the Central, you got the Cardinals, the Cubs, and the Pirates all looking like good teams as well. So there's some beast-ass teams out here in the NL. But I'm going to say second place with the Mets. You're saying second place with the Mets. JK47 saying first place. And I could definitely see that happening with this pitching staff. And I have no problems with the offense as well, although we know, like I said, Wright's going to miss some time. Walker probably going to miss some time. d'Arnaud probably going to miss some time. Who knows? Granderson might miss some time. And this pitching staff, who knows? They need to stay healthy as well. That's it, New York Mets. Your team is beast.
And you have a shot of doing special things this year. People in New York, you got any comments, got any questions, you can hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Like us on Facebook. Go to that YouTube page. Subscribe to that YouTube. How do you get to that YouTube?
YouTube.com/betthespread.
Bet the spread.
And you just click thumbs up.
That's it. Subscribe. NL Central and NL West.
Yep.
To come. 2 more divisions. We're going to break them down, and that'll wrap up our preseason baseball breakdown.